There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that being nice has cost them more than they ever imagined, not because kindness is a weakness, but because somewhere along the way, kindness turned into permission. Permission for people to ignore your needs. Permission for others to cross your boundaries. Permission to make you believe that your value depends on how much you sacrifice for everyone else. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that being kind means always saying yes, always agreeing, and always putting everyone else's needs before their own. At first, it feels like the right thing to do. You want to be helpful, supportive, and understanding. You want people to see you as someone they can trust. But over time, something begins to change. You notice that your kindness is no longer appreciated. It is expected. The favors become demands. The appreciation turns into entitlement. Instead of feeling fulfilled, you begin to feel exhausted because your generosity has slowly become an obligation rather than a choice. True kindness comes from a place of strength. It is a decision you make because you genuinely want to contribute to someone else's life. People-pleasing, however, comes from fear. It is driven by the fear of rejection, conflict, criticism, or disappointing others. When fear controls your decisions, you stop acting from your values and start reacting to other people's expectations. Your focus shifts from living authentically to keeping everyone around you comfortable, even if it costs you your own peace. Think about how many times you have agreed to something you never wanted to do. You smiled when you wanted to speak up. You apologized for things that were never your fault. You stayed in conversations that drained your energy because you didn't want to seem rude. Every one of those moments may have felt small, but together they create a pattern. That pattern teaches your mind that your needs are less important than everyone else's, and over time you begin to believe it. The truth is that people who genuinely care about you do not expect you to sacrifice yourself for their happiness. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, honesty, and understanding. They leave room for both people to express their needs without guilt or manipulation. If someone only values you when you constantly give, then they are not respecting you. They are benefiting from your inability to say no. There is nothing selfish about protecting your energy. There is nothing wrong with choosing rest instead of constant availability. You are not responsible for fixing every problem, solving every crisis, or carrying every emotional burden placed on your shoulders. You can be compassionate without becoming responsible for everyone's happiness. You can support people without abandoning yourself in the process. Imagine kindness as a gift instead of a requirement. A gift has value because it is given freely. The moment it becomes something people demand from you, it loses its meaning. Your generosity should come from choice, not pressure. Your help should be offered because it aligns with your values, not because you fear what people will think if you refuse. Many people confuse being liked with being respected. They believe that if everyone approves of them, they will finally feel secure. But approval is temporary because it depends on other people's opinions, and opinions change. Respect begins within. It grows every time you honor your word, protect your boundaries, and make decisions that reflect your principles instead of your fears. When you stop chasing approval, something remarkable begins to happen. You become calmer because you are no longer trying to control how everyone sees you. You become stronger because your confidence is no longer dependent on praise. You become more authentic because you stop performing for acceptance and start living according to your deepest values. That is, the moment kindness becomes a powerful expression of character instead of a desperate attempt to earn your place in someone else's life. Respect from other people will always be uncertain if you have not first developed respect for yourself. Many people spend years searching for validation from friends, family, coworkers, or strangers, believing that praise and recognition will finally make them feel valuable. Yet no amount of external approval can fill the emptiness created by a lack of self-respect. The opinions of others are constantly changing, and if your confidence depends on those opinions, your emotional state will rise and fall with every compliment and every criticism. Self-respect begins with the promises you make to yourself. Every time you commit to something meaningful and follow through, you strengthen your belief in your own character. Every time you ignore your values, break your own commitments, or settle for less than you deserve, you weaken that belief. Confidence is not created by pretending to be fearless. It is built through consistent action that proves you can trust yourself, even when life becomes uncomfortable. Think about the standards you set for your own life. Do you allow people to speak to you in ways you would never speak to someone else? Do you accept behavior that leaves you feeling small, ignored, or unimportant simply because you are afraid of confrontation? Every time you tolerate disrespect, you silently communicate that your boundaries are optional. Self-respect grows when you decide that your dignity is no longer something you are willing to negotiate. Many people believe they must achieve extraordinary success before they deserve respect. They tell themselves that once they earn more money, reach a certain position, or accomplish a major goal, they will finally feel worthy. But true self-respect is not attached to achievements. It is reflected in the way you carry yourself every single day. It is found in your honesty when no one is watching, your discipline when no one is reminding you, and your integrity when taking shortcuts would be easier. One of the greatest signs of self-respect is learning to walk away from situations that consistently damage your peace. This does not mean giving up at the first sign of difficulty. It means recognizing the difference between healthy challenges that help you grow and unhealthy environments that slowly destroy your confidence. You cannot expect to feel strong while constantly surrounding yourself with people who ignore your worth or take your kindness for granted. Self-respect also requires you to stop comparing your journey to everyone else's. Comparison convinces you that your value depends on being better than someone else, but your worth has never been a competition. Every person has a different path, different struggles, and different opportunities. The only meaningful comparison is between who you were yesterday and who you choose to become today. Growth begins when you measure your progress by your own standards instead of someone else's expectations. There will always be people who misunderstand your decisions, question your choices, or fail to appreciate your efforts. If your identity depends on pleasing them, you will spend your life chasing approval that never feels permanent. The moment you understand that your value is not determined by someone else's opinion, you become emotionally free. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking to fit into places that cannot recognize your potential. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace, honoring your priorities, and living according to your principles because you finally realize that the strongest foundation for lasting respect is the respect you choose to give yourself every single day through your thoughts, your actions, and the standards you refuse to compromise. One of the most powerful decisions you can make is to establish clear boundaries and refuse to feel guilty for protecting them. Many people hesitate to set boundaries because they fear being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. They worry that saying no will make them seem selfish or uncaring, but boundaries are not walls that keep people out. They are guidelines that teach others how to treat you while allowing you to protect your time, energy, and emotional well-being. Without boundaries, even the strongest and kindest person eventually becomes overwhelmed, frustrated, and emotionally drained. Every time you say yes to something you truly want to refuse, you are often saying no to something that matters more. You might be sacrificing your peace, your priorities, your health, or your personal growth simply to avoid making someone else uncomfortable. Over time, these small compromises begin to add up. You start feeling resentful, not because people ask too much of you, but because you repeatedly ignored your own limits. The resentment you carry is often the result of boundaries you were afraid to establish. Setting boundaries begins with understanding that your needs are just as important as anyone else's. Your time is valuable, your energy is limited, your emotional capacity is not endless. You cannot continue pouring into everyone else's life while neglecting your own. Just as a healthy tree needs strong roots to produce fruit, you need to take care of yourself before you can genuinely support others. Protecting your well-being allows your kindness to remain sincere rather than becoming a burden. Many people confuse boundaries with being rude. In reality, respectful boundaries create healthier relationships because they replace assumptions with clarity. Instead of silently hoping people will notice your discomfort, you communicate honestly and confidently. You express what you are willing to accept and what you are not. This honesty eliminates confusion and creates mutual respect. People who value you will appreciate your openness, while those who only benefited from your lack of boundaries may resist the change. It is important to remember that not everyone will be happy when you begin protecting your time and energy. Some people become comfortable with unlimited access to your attention, your help, and your availability. When you suddenly begin saying no, they may question your character or accuse you of changing. In reality, you are not becoming less kind. You are becoming more intentional. Their disappointment is not proof that your boundaries are wrong. Often, it simply reflects the fact that they were benefiting from your inability to protect yourself. Learning to say no without guilt is a skill that becomes stronger with practice. You do not need to offer endless explanations or apologize for every decision you make. A respectful and honest response is enough. The more confidently you honor your commitments to yourself, the easier it becomes to make decisions without seeking everyone's approval. Confidence grows every time you choose integrity over people-pleasing. Healthy boundaries also teach you to recognize relationships that are built on mutual respect instead of constant sacrifice. The people who genuinely care about you will not demand that you ignore your own needs to satisfy theirs. They will understand that respecting your limits is part of respecting you as a person. As you continue strengthening your boundaries, you begin to experience greater peace, stronger self-confidence, and healthier connections because you are no longer living according to other people's expectations, but according to the standards and values that protect your dignity, your purpose, and your inner strength. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build every single time you choose courage over comfort. One of the clearest signs of real confidence is the ability to say no when something does not align with your values, your priorities, or your well-being. Yet for many people, that simple two-letter word feels incredibly difficult to say. They fear disappointing others, creating conflict, or being seen as selfish. As a result, they agree to things they never wanted, take on responsibilities that do not belong to them, and slowly lose control over their own lives. Every time you say yes out of fear instead of conviction, you give away a small piece of your personal power. At first, it may not seem like a big deal. You tell yourself that it is only one favor, one extra commitment, one more sacrifice. But those small decisions begin to shape your identity. You become known as the person who is always available, always accommodating, and always willing to put everyone else first. While that may earn temporary appreciation, it often comes at the cost of your peace, your energy, and your self-respect. Saying no is not about rejecting people. It is about accepting responsibility for your own life. Every yes carries a cost because your time, attention, and energy are limited resources. When you give them away without intention, you leave less for your own goals, your family, your health, and the dreams that matter most to you. Confident people understand that every decision is an investment, and they choose carefully where they invest themselves. Standing firm does not require aggression or confrontation. True strength is calm, clear, and consistent. You do not need to raise your voice to communicate confidence. You simply need to express your decision with honesty and certainty. People often respect those who know where they stand because certainty creates trust. When your words match your actions, others begin to understand that your decisions are thoughtful rather than emotional. There will always be moments when people challenge your boundaries. Some may pressure you to change your mind. Others may try to make you feel guilty for choosing yourself. In those moments, remember that guilt is not always a sign you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is simply the uncomfortable feeling that comes from breaking old habits. If you have spent years putting everyone else first, choosing yourself will feel unfamiliar. That discomfort is part of growth, not a reason to abandon your progress. The ability to stand firm also means accepting that not everyone will approve of your decisions. You cannot control how others react, but you can control whether your choices reflect your principles. Seeking universal approval is an impossible goal because every person has different expectations. If you spend your life trying to satisfy everyone, you will eventually lose sight of what truly matters to you. Confidence grows when your actions are guided by your values instead of by the opinions of others. Each time you respectfully decline something that does not serve your purpose, you strengthen your inner voice. Each time you honor your priorities instead of surrendering them to outside pressure, you prove to yourself that your needs deserve attention. That self-trust becomes the foundation of lasting confidence. Over time, saying no becomes less about refusing others and more about saying yes to the life you are determined to create, yes to your peace of mind, yes to your personal growth, yes to your future, and yes to becoming someone whose decisions are rooted in purpose rather than fear, whose presence communicates quiet strength, and whose unwavering commitment to personal values inspires respect without the need for approval or permission from anyone. The way you communicate tells people more about your confidence than the words you choose. You can have incredible ideas, strong values, and a kind heart, but if you constantly hesitate, apologize for your opinions, or allow others to interrupt you without speaking up, people begin to overlook your presence. Commanding respect is not about speaking louder than everyone else. It is about speaking with clarity, calmness, and conviction. There is a quiet strength in someone who knows who they are and expresses themselves without fear or hostility. Many people believe confidence looks aggressive, but true confidence is remarkably peaceful. It does not need to dominate every conversation or prove every point. It listens carefully, thinks before responding, and speaks with purpose instead of reacting emotionally. When you remain calm under pressure, you demonstrate emotional control, and emotional control is one of the strongest forms of personal power. Anyone can raise their voice when they are frustrated, but very few people can remain composed when they are challenged. Calm communication begins with believing that your thoughts have value. If you constantly doubt yourself before speaking, others will often sense that uncertainty. You may begin your sentences with unnecessary apologies or weaken your message by asking for permission to express your own opinion. Instead of speaking directly, you hide behind hesitation because you fear disagreement. The moment you start trusting your own perspective, your words naturally become more confident. You no longer feel the need to justify every decision or explain every choice to gain approval. Your body language also communicates before you ever say a word. Standing with confidence, maintaining steady eye contact, and speaking at a measured pace create an impression of certainty. Rushing your words, avoiding eye contact, or constantly looking for reassurance can unintentionally signal insecurity. People are influenced not only by what you say, but by how consistently your actions support your message. When your posture, tone, and words are aligned, your presence becomes stronger without requiring extra effort. Communication with conviction also means learning to embrace silence. Many people become uncomfortable during pauses and immediately begin filling the space with unnecessary explanations. Silence can be incredibly powerful because it shows that you are comfortable with yourself. It allows your words to carry more weight instead of being lost in endless conversation. A thoughtful pause often communicates more confidence than speaking without stopping. It gives you time to think clearly and prevents emotional reactions from controlling your response. Another important part of strong communication is learning not to take every disagreement personally. People will not always share your opinions, and that is perfectly normal. Respect does not require agreement, it requires maturity. When someone challenges your ideas, respond with curiosity instead of defensiveness. Listen without immediately preparing a counter-argument. A confident person understands that listening does not weaken their position. It demonstrates wisdom, patience, and self-control. The ability to remain respectful during disagreement often earns more admiration than winning an argument. Speaking with conviction also requires honesty. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Avoid making promises you cannot keep simply to please others. Let your words reflect your values and let your actions reinforce those words every single day. Consistency builds credibility, and credibility creates trust. Over time, people begin to recognize that when you speak, your words carry meaning because they are backed by integrity rather than emotion or impulse. Your voice becomes a reflection of your character, your calmness becomes a source of strength, and your conviction becomes something that inspires confidence in others because it is rooted in self-respect, emotional discipline, and the courage to communicate with honesty regardless of the situation or the opinions surrounding you. The quality of your life is determined by the standards you choose to live by, not by the amount of approval you receive from other people. Many people unknowingly spend years allowing the opinions of others to shape their decisions. They choose careers to impress family members, stay in unhealthy relationships to avoid criticism, silence their dreams to fit into social expectations, and constantly seek reassurance before taking action. The result is a life that may look acceptable from the outside but feels empty on the inside because it is built around pleasing others instead of honoring personal values. Standards are different from goals. A goal is something you hope to achieve in the future, but a standard is the minimum level you refuse to fall below every single day. Goals can change, but standards become part of your identity. They influence how you think, how you speak, how you treat yourself, and how you allow others to treat you. When your standards are high, your decisions naturally begin to reflect the kind of person you are committed to becoming. You no longer ask, what will make everyone happy? Instead, you ask, does this align with my values and the life I want to create? Seeking approval is a dangerous habit because it places your emotional well-being in the hands of people whose opinions you cannot control. No matter how hard you try, there will always be someone who misunderstands you, disagrees with your choices, or questions your intentions. If you depend on universal acceptance, you will spend your entire life changing yourself to match the expectations of others. Every time you reshape your personality just to be accepted, you move farther away from the person you were meant to become. Living by standards requires courage because it often means making unpopular decisions. There will be moments when you have to walk away from situations that no longer reflect your values. You may have to decline opportunities that compromise your integrity or distance yourself from relationships that repeatedly drain your energy. These choices are rarely easy, but they become necessary when you decide that your self-respect is more valuable than temporary approval. Every difficult decision strengthens your character because it reminds you that your principles are not for sale. People who command genuine respect understand that discipline is a daily expression of personal standards. They do not wait until they feel motivated before taking action. They follow through because they have made a commitment to themselves. Whether it is keeping their word, protecting their health, managing their time wisely, or staying true to their values during difficult circumstances, their actions are guided by consistency rather than emotion. That consistency creates trust, not only with others, but also within themselves. There is a powerful freedom that comes from releasing the need to be liked by everyone. You stop wasting energy explaining every choice you make. You stop apologizing for having healthy boundaries. You stop shrinking your dreams to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Instead, you begin making decisions based on purpose instead of popularity. Your confidence becomes quieter but stronger because it is no longer dependent on applause or recognition. You understand that not everyone has to agree with your path for it to be the right one. As your standards become stronger, your relationships begin to change. People who respect honesty, integrity, and authenticity will naturally appreciate your consistency, while those who only valued your willingness to sacrifice yourself may become uncomfortable. That change is not a loss, but a sign of growth. Your life begins to attract people who respect your values instead of exploiting your kindness. Every choice you make becomes a reflection of the standards you refuse to compromise, allowing your character, your discipline, and your unwavering commitment to personal excellence to define your future rather than the changing opinions, expectations, and approval of the world around you